Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Vincent and this is a quick overview about the new cinema version R26. And I can't be more excited to talk about this thing because you will see in a second. So let's put my face away. And that's because I want to open Cinema 4D, and usually I don't do that, but in this case you now see why this version is so special for me. And Maxon did approach me and ask me if I could make the startup, like the splash screen animation, and this is really like a huge honor. I was like blasted away, and like every time I'm now starting, or every time I will start 26, I will be happy. Like if I started, or if it crashes and I have to open it again, I won't be that mad as usual. So let's close it again and open it again, and we are here in 26. And I also want to talk about some of the features which are new. Welcome to S26. Let's go through some of the stuff which is nice, which is small, which is big, which is a huge update for me. So quick thing, as you can see, the green arrows are back, which is like a tiny update, but I think a lot of people were asking for it, and I think it's just a nicer UI thing that it's glowing green here. And I'm opening also up R25 to perhaps give some quick comparisons. Here you can see they are gray. Nice. That's a first little nice thing. Also, this folder is called Small But Nice. And smooth edges. I already created something here, but let's redo this, and I will, I don't know, do some of the stuff. Otherwise, some of the stuff I will only show you and not redo. Smooth edges is a new modeling tool, so therefore I will duplicate this here, and for now we can also delete this guy. I mean, this is all super basic. And I'm pressing NB on the keyboard to see my lines, and actually let's see if we also are wireframe. Yeah, that's correct. And I don't know, let's make like 5 by 5 by 5, and let's convert this guy, and I will make a loop selection with UL. This is all basic and standard, and now the thing is new, smooth edges. And you can see what is happening. If I drag to the right, we have a lot of iterations, and Cinema is trying to smooth out the selection which I made. And I think this is really interesting for modeling. I don't know, before I wouldn't know how to do this kind of thing. And you can, for example, only select a few lines and try to smooth them, and it will give us some interesting results. And usually I don't do this much of modeling, therefore I'm only showing you a few features for the new modeling core, but they did a lot of things, and people who are modeling a lot, I think this update will be also pretty good for them. So smooth edges is really nice, and I think it can help to do some interesting stuff. Then close a polygon hole. In R25 this was pretty annoying because you closed it and you had one piece of geometry, like it was not looking at the rest of the topology. And now if you close it, the cool thing is you will see what is cool. So let's see for a close polygon hole, and we can click, and what is new, you can see the subdivisions are exactly perfect to the rest, and this is really a big deal. It saves a lot of time and goes in my small but nice list. So let's close small but nice, and let's open finally Quadremesher. And this is like a huge update for me. Well, actually it's no update at all because I already bought Quadremesher, but I think this is really the best plugin out there, and like remeshing your mesh is so important and so amazing. I use this tool every day, and now Cinema finally, I think, bought them or licensed their software, and now you can use the Quadremesher inside of the remesher tool. So you just need to go for remesh. And yeah, I already dragged them here. This one is called instant and quad because you still have the old instant mesher in here. And you can see on the right side how the mesh looks. And yeah, this is just not as good. Here it's way better. We have perfectly loop cuts. The mesh looks really nice. And yeah, it's perfect. But cool thing is now you have it in there. And it's parametric, which is kind of nice because with the old plugin, you just had to type in a value, and if you didn't like it, you had to undo things. But now it's parametric. You can adjust all the things from the old app, and therefore I will open up R25 and open Quadremesher here as well. So we have the same values here, and like adaptive size and so on and so on, and everything like this can be adjusted on the mesh here as well. You can see the density of the mesh, or you can switch to the poly count, and the poly count is the one from the previous one. If you're used to that, to these numbers, you can use it here, and we have 2000 polygons here now. And as I said, it's adaptive. It takes a while for this mesh because it's like really high res. You can see this if I undo the instant mesh. I mean, it's not really high res, but it's quite high res. And yeah, actually to remesh this mesh takes a while. That's why it also takes a while. But as I said, you can adjust everything. You have your adaptive count. You can detect the hard edges. And here it's even at auto, which is nice. Or I don't know if it's nice. Probably it's nice. And yeah, so we have a mesh with 2000 polygons now. And then you can just use it and convert it. Press C on your keyboard, and you have a wonderful mesh here. And yeah, so for everyone who didn't buy Quadremesher yet, this is a huge update for me and a really nice way. Then my number 3, dynamics, and this is also amazing. It is amazing, yet I'm a little bit disappointed because it's only the cloth engine. It's not the whole engine. And let's open it up. The performance of the cloth engine is really amazing. I'm very much looking forward to work with this and to try out and to learn something. And I think it has great potential for the future for the rest of the dynamic text. Perhaps it will come in the next version, because now they changed the way of how everything is calculated. It's calculated by particle base. And you can also calculate in the CPU and also on the GPU. So the calculation is way faster. And I just made some 2 tests here. And I think something else is still on, because I have a lot of tests on here and probably some text is still on. For example, this dynamic text is still enabled. So something in the background was calculating, because these are 2 only alembics, because I wanted the presentation to be quick. And let's see if that was it. Yeah. So they were calculating the back, and I will talk about the settings a bit later. But here are 2 cloth objects. One has more of a stiff look. Actually, this is the stiffest look you can get, and this is the softest look you can get. And yeah, as I said, it looks pretty nice. The quad amount is great, the performance is great, and we will also see that in real time. So here's my first cloth test. Let's hide this, and let's see my second cloth test. And that's not an alembic, so we can see how it performs in real time. And I've just 3 cubes, and it takes a little bit in the first frame, but then as you can see, it's incredible fast. This is real time, nothing is cached. So I mean, this is a huge update for everyone who loves to make these kind of blobs like me. So great thing, yeah. Let's have a look at the values. For example, this is the cloth thing. You can adjust, you can get it by, now it's in the simulation tag. There is all the cloth stuff, and I think they did it because they will add the rest of the simulation in there, which is actually the bullet engine, which is like the 20-year-old engine, and it has the rigid body and the soft body in here as well. And here are now the cloth parts. Unfortunately, these 2 engines won't work together, so a soft object can't transform a rigid body. That's a bit annoying, but as I said, perhaps it will come up in the newest in the 27 then. But for now, we definitely will have a lot of fun with our clothes and rope. These 2 things are great. Then you get the tag here. And let me see, you can play around with some values. The bendiness and the stretchiness is available. And you can go with 1000 or 10,000 and 0.0001. So for now, I'll select all of them so it's easier to understand what I'm doing here. So if you go with a very low value, this is the lowest possible, 0001, 0001, we will have a very stiff object. And this is the stiffest thing you can get with the cloth simulation. And I'm pressing Command D on my keyboard, and now the simulation tab is different for all our dynamics here. I'm actually a bit curious, which I didn't test yet, how you will be able to adjust the bullet simulation adjustments, or if they are the same then with the bullet engine. But you can see there is way more to adjust now. We are having substeps iterations, smooth iterations, we have dampening, collision passes, post-collision passes, and polished iterations. All of them are doing different things. I'm trying to learn everything a bit. So gravity was obviously on, which I turned off, so they're hovering around. Then my scene scale is 1 centimeter. Usually this value is 100, but my values are smaller, and this is a small scene. I think the default value for substeps was 20 or 25. Reset. It's 20, and the lower the value, the faster the simulation, but the more inaccurate it is. And this step, the higher values you have, the more stiff it gets. Let's see if we already see a difference if we change it only like very few iterations. And remember, our object here should be very stiff. We have the most stiffest value possible right now, so therefore we will crank up our substeps, and now you can see everything is way more firm and stiff. And that's related to the particles, and I think it's a lot of try and error, how your look should go and how fast the simulation is. If there are errors, if there are some collision errors, you have to increase the collision passes. And with these two things you can polish them. And I think the smoothing iteration is quite important, because there are so many particles, they are a bit jittery. But you can work against that with dampening, you can drain out some energy so it's less jittery. And also if you have errors, you can increase your iterations. And especially with if you have a lot of objects and a lot of collisions, this helps a lot. But this scene is really simple, so there's not much, we wouldn't need so many steps here. But again, it's nearly like, it's still very fast, even though we have such an increased amount for substeps. So let's drop that down to 40 and 20 again, and let's make it the softest possible. Wait, there's one more 0 possible, I think. Or is it? Wait, you can even go higher than... Actually, I don't know where the limit of softiness is. This is really behaving very weird and softy. And I think I worked with a value of 1000, and I think this is more reasonable, and the object is still a bit transforming. Let's see, the turbulence is still off, and when I'm turning on the turbulence, you can see it's really jittery, like very soft and cloth-like, and like super interesting. I just have a shader field animated there, so that's why it looks a bit different here. And yeah, I would already have like 1,000 ideas how to implement this in an interesting rendering. And yeah, there's a lot of values to play around. The bend deformation and stretch deformation is still a bit hard to understand for me. It feels like it gets a bit more stiffer in some values, but I still have to learn more about that. And yeah, this is very interesting. I'm turning that off for now, but there's also another option which is actually already activated, the balloon thing. So there's like pressure in the objects. Now the balloon thing is off, and this looks like this without the pressure. And I would say this is also like super interesting, especially how the turbulence shader field is slowly changing them. And we could also perhaps try how this now looks if we activate the stretch and bend deform. So some areas will be stiffened. And also actually we could try to make the objects overall a bit stiffer. So let's see what happens. Oh, you can see there's a really big difference. Now because the strength is more strong, like the turbulence is like kind of doing nothing. And yeah, perhaps let's try a value of 100 if we will still have something in there. And it's a bit stiffer, but it's deforming. So 100 works really well here. And you can play around with your bounciness, friction, and the thickness is important for the particle collision, but I will talk about all this stuff more in detail in some Patreon tutorials. Nice. Let's turn off our simulations here. So I'm going into enable and turn it off. And also the turbulence I'm turning off because I want to open up the next scene. And this is a rope scene. And that's the second biggest update for me is the rope thing here. And this is a cached scene here. I just put out some alembics. This was from another scene, but I just copied it into this scene, and so I don't need to cache anything and I don't need to worry about stuff. So it's just to show you. And this is pretty amazing because I love simulations with ropes. I think this, I will have a lot of fun with this. Especially we are now able to have different properties of the ropes. Before that, everyone had to use whole rope to be able to create some cloth simulations, and it was pretty good. Actually, this plugin was like my second most used plugin, and thanks for the guy who did that. I made a lot of renderings with this. Cheers. But what we couldn't do, we couldn't adjust the bendiness of the ropes, and you can see here I have different values. This one is very stiff, the green one. This one is a bit less stiff, and this is super not stiff. And we can adjust different stickiness, like friction, and you really get very interesting results. As I said, I'm really just also learning everything like this because it's brand new, and I don't know, perhaps I'm doing still some stuff wrong, and I rendered the scene. I, for now, have an issue. I'm not sure where it comes from. I will further continue to explore that. You can see, especially in the transparent rope, there's some weird jittering. It might be the redshift deformation blur that some particles are, I don't know, doing anything, or not so sure yet why there comes so much jumpiness in the scene. But yeah, I will learn it, and let's see about that. So another rope test. In this test, I used a belt, and you can pin like objects to a belt and animate them. And this is really great. I mean, this kind of animation wouldn't be possible with cinema before. We have seen this stuff in Houdini, but now it's also possible in cinema, which is really nice. And I also, well, this was the one which I showed you. Actually, I switched them. This was the test before, and the rendering looks super nice, but again, the twitchy switching problem. But I will update you on that issue. Then another scene, another test. Let's just play the animation and see what's happening. And I have a lot of clones. It's 90 pieces. And before that, well, actually, I kind of think I broke the scene because of probably the camera, and this, I definitely made something wrong here. I copied it from my test scene, but it doesn't matter because the most important thing what I wanted to show you is like the performance of really how fast this is. And you can see we are really nearly in real time, but these are so many pieces, and this looks very interesting. And perhaps to make it even more interesting, I can put on all the deformers, and probably that was the issue why it didn't look like as my demo version. So let's reposition my camera again. Let's press play and see if everything happens how I tested it. And you can see always at the first frame it takes a while. I think it's because of the GPU thing. But if the scene is loaded into the card, as you can see, it's incredible fast, and it will be so much fun to play around. This looks like some, I don't know, living worms trying to escape something here on the left, and they can't go further than that because there is a fall off for the wind here. And yeah, I will definitely render this as well. Looks super nice. Let me see, these were all my tests, and yeah, let's give ourselves a quick summary. Quadremesher is really nice. A lot of nice modeling things, which are tools which are new, which I don't use too often because I am not the biggest modeling fan. It's not my thing, but simulations are really great. And I think in the future it will be even more great if the two simulation engines will play together, and if you have just one universe where you can dynamically animate hard objects like rigid bodies, you have collisions, you have soft bodies, you have cloths, you have ropes, just all driven by the particle simulations in the background. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I think, well, I know there are also some updates in the capsule thing, but to be very honest, I've never used it before. Perhaps I will in future, or perhaps there's going to be a workflow to be able to integrate some parts, kind of plugins which you can use into this normal field here. And yeah, I don't know, I will be excited about that, and I will try to learn new things, and I will tell you what I've learned so far. But again, super excited with this update, and let's just close this again. And as a very last goodbye everyone, I will open it up once again. And at this point, I also want to say thanks to Maxon for this opportunity. And well, I want to say thanks to every one of you for watching and listening. See you the next time, and bye bye.